Welcome everybody to the Personal PR Show, to another episode of the public Personal PR Show. And today we're here with the one and only Derek. Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you here. And actually, you should be the host because you are the professional podcaster, not me.
This is fun. I like being on the answering side. I was, I don't know if you're familiar with human design. There's some part of my human design that makes other people tell me their stories. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, because I was just dropping my kids off at school and some other parent just started telling me their story. And I was like, this is why I'm a podcast host, is because people naturally just want to tell me things.
Yes, because you inspire so much trust. Even when I met you just a few months ago, I felt immediately at ease with you, right? So people want to share with you, and and we share stories and connections as well. It is great. So I'm super happy to have you in my network. And by the way, today's topic is networking. Isn't it cool? This is one of your many areas of expertise.
Yeah, and which obviously you're super pro, been doing this all over the world for many years. So it's been great being in, seeing how you work, because you place your focus on that aspect, probably even more than I do. And it's really cool. You've brought great groups of people together that I get to be a part of. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and you always contribute in a great way in various groups that you're part of. So we're super happy and super grateful to have you there. Yes, Derek, oh my God. Shall we introduce you? I mean, would you like to introduce yourself so we can get the conversation going?
Well, with regards to this topic, I started studying network because a friend of mine, Jordan Harbinger, he's like one of the OG podcasters, hosts the Jordan Harbinger Show. Maybe 10 years ago, he was telling me about how he got started in networking. And it was, he was in a law firm in New York, and the managing partner of the law firm was hardly ever in the office. And he asked him, he's like, how are you paid more than anyone else, but you're never working? And he was like, I'm the one that has the network, and I go out and I just bring in the business. And hearing that story, and then, so the first thing I did was, at that time I was applying to grad school, and I was, this was right after the GFC, the global financial crisis of 2008, and everyone was going back to grad school because nobody was getting jobs. And so the competition level was really high. Something like less than 1% of applicants were getting grad school positions. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is too competitive, really. Even if I'm in the top 1%, I might not get it. So I decided to hack my way in, basically to get into grad school via the side door through networking. And I basically spent all my time just building personal relationships with the professors that I would be working with, rather than sort of building a case for myself with my CV or something like that. And ultimately, I went to Montana State, which you might not think is the best school for a lot of things, but in extremophile biology, which is what I was studying, it's probably second best in the world behind the Max Planck Institute in Germany. And so I went up there. I booked myself a ticket, and I had 15 meetings with professors lined up ahead of time, because I had already been emailing them back and forth. I had read all of their work, their decades worth of scientific research. I familiarized myself with that. And then I would send them emails like, hey, have you thought about this as the next phase of your research? Or like, hey, just saw this new article came out. Don't know if you had read it, but here's my interpretation of the results. And so I was placing myself as a sort of a collaborator or just a contributing member of their group. So they already thought of me as like part of their, research. And so I went there and I had these meetings in person. And by the end, many of them were talking to the dean of the department. They were like, you should have this guy join. And so when I left, I basically had an offer in hand. I was the only, and then one other person got an offer that year. So it was really just about making those relationships and then going there in person. And it really, to me, I was just blown away that it was so easy, because I've applied to jobs in the past where you send out 400 applications for jobs and you don't hear back from any of them. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a black hole. But this is really the way I see it, is the fastest way to get what you want.
Oh my God, you're so right. Me too. When 10, 12 years ago, I discovered networking. I was so excited, and it was like, it felt like a superpower. I don't know if you felt the same, because it feels like a superpower, right? And basically you can create so many opportunities. It's like you can create what you want through networking just by establishing relationships, and maybe sometimes, bringing people together, the right people together. It's like, I don't know, it's hardly describable. And my life completely changed. My perception of the world and what is possible in the world changed as well. And I know that you deal a lot with quantum science. And I would say, I don't know if this is too far-fetched, but I would say that networking can be actually a quantum power at times.
Well, when you think about the law of reciprocity, that is the flow of energy in the universe, the give and take of all things, then if you're a great networker, you're constantly thinking of other people and how you can give to them, which creates a feedback loop for things to flow back to you. And there's Adam Grant has done science that basically shows most people are kind of matchers. There's givers and takers and matchers. And I kind of grew up as a taker, honestly. I was an only child, and I was used to just people doing things for me. And I didn't have a conception of exactly what I needed to give in return. And then early on in my career, I was a matcher. I was like, oh, okay, you did something for me. Great. I'll remember that. And then I'll do you a favor in the future. And it was like a kind of a scorecard in my head, keeping track of, and that improved my success. But really transforming into a giver, there's great books like The Go-Giver, which illustrate these points. But when you're in a place where you're thinking about what other people need, you're just paying attention. And you're like, okay, here's the types of things that I can offer. Here's what I'm seeing people need. Here's a really easy way for me to add my value into this. It just creates this almost disproportional benefit, right, to the effort you put in. And so the studies show that givers have their careers are much more accelerated than the matchers or the takers.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Wow. What was the switch for you? How did you decide, or how did you notice that you had become a giver from a matcher to a giver?
I think it started, I was just giving away a lot of ideas. This was an aspect of what James Altucher talks about. He talks about becoming an idea machine, that he had these low moments in his life where all he could do was just come up with ideas and give them away. And I started this practice of coming up with lots of ideas. I love brainstorming. I love the science of creativity and things like that. So I was, just coming up with lots of ideas and giving them away. And whether people were using the ideas or not, sometimes they did, and it was really helpful. But sometimes they were like, wow, you were thinking of me. And that built connection in the relationship. It built trust, and then on down the line, more collaborations or more, referral of business happened. But it was this, sort of trust building process. If someone's like, hey, I thought of you and I did put in some effort to help you, it's like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. So that was kind of my entry point into that.
Wow. Yes. And by the way, another question, a similar question, that was the origin of you, becoming not a taker, a giver in networking. Now, did it go also hand in hand with you developing your quantum powers, getting to know your quantum powers, develop your quantum powers as well? Did that happen in parallel, more or less at the same stage, or was any of these two things developed earlier than the other one?
I would say my thinking about networking, it's in a way I still see it as a very three-dimensional practice, like in the physical world. Like we're doing business, we're making products, we have an organization or a movement, and it's like very much the mechanics of the physical world. And so I learned all that stuff right back in grad school before I was even a business coach, before I was, so that was 12 years ago, kind of, when I, is that what you said when you started 12 years ago?
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, you remember.
Must have been something in the air at that time. So yeah, and then probably the last 7 years is my focus more on consciousness, applied metaphysics. And it's, I really like helping entrepreneurs, because when I think of entrepreneur, I think of people that are like, they almost receive some sort of divine inspiration. They're like, oh my gosh, the world needs a new blank. And whether it's a new community or a new widget or a new festival, whatever it is, like they're the ones that are like channeling in what the world needs. And so, I like to facilitate helping that happen.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, this is amazing. You have so many talents, because now we've just talked about, your quantum business and networking, but actually you do so many other things. By the way, would you like to, of course, we won't have time to develop every single one of these items, but would you like to maybe mention, just, drop a few names of the things that you do in your life? We know about podcasting as well, by the way. This is the first thing that we mentioned. I mean, you're so multidimensional. I meet a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, but you're really one of the most multidimensional people that I've ever met.
Well, we're all multidimensional, and realizing and remembering our multidimensionality makes us appear more multidimensional, here on Earth. But one thing that I'm super excited about, and so 2 years ago, I was researching sort of superhuman feats that different saints or gurus around the world, or medicine men, shamans, what they could do, sort of like levitating or shooting sparks out of their hand, or healing people with their touch and all this stuff. And I started on a quest to experience all these different phenomenon, techniques, healing techniques, whatever it may be. I'm 60. This is actually more than 2 years ago. I'm 67 out of 100 so far. I've done 67 different experiences, from as simple as fasting to psychedelics to remote viewing, and all kinds of different things. But 2 years ago, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a school where we could teach people superhuman abilities? And this year, in the last couple of weeks, I've just started my first course, my first offering for this, which is it's a course called Telepathy Initiation. And basically, we're familiar with the term telepathy, but what it really is tapping into non-local awareness, which is basically a diffuse form of consciousness that's connected with everything. It's based on quantum entanglement. So we have access to basically any information that we want. And it just takes some training and practice to be able to access it.
Wow. So that means through the quantum field, and that happens through the quantum field.
Yeah, I would say one way to think about this is the physical world, the desk, the mic, the things that we can touch, see, smell, is just a byproduct of the underlying consciousness. So first you have consciousness, and then as a thought form becomes more and more dense, it can become a physical thing. So there's a less dense consciousness form that precedes the physicality.
Right.
And so that's what basically, so the science that backs this up, for example, in near-death experiences, when people are brain dead, they and come back, they report having memories. So they report, being able to see their body, they're floating above their body, watching an operation perhaps, or, they're in a coma, or they have bacterial infection in the brain, whatever it may be, and they're technically not able to create new memories, but they still have memory. So how does that work? Well, there's an aspect of consciousness that's outside of the brain. It's not part of the physical body, but it's, preceding that. And then the other, another great point of evidence is these kids, when they're 4, 5, 6 years old, they remember their previous lifetime. And they can say, oh, I was Joe Schmo, and I was a pig farmer, and I lived in Iowa, and here's all my relatives' names, and here's the address where I lived, and all these things. And then you can go and verify that. You can just go, was this person real? And it all checks out, right? And the cool thing is, even facial recognition software, when you take a picture of the dead person that they used to be and match it with who they are now, it matches. So not only is there some form of memory, consciousness that moves from lifetime to lifetime, there's also an aspect of our physical nature that moves from lifetime to lifetime.
Right. Oh my God, yes, because otherwise we wouldn't have the face recognition. This is a little bit scary as well. It's so fascinating, but at the same time, a little bit scary too, right? And by the way, going back to the near-death experience, I can report, and I'm not usually say I'm happy to report. This time, I'm not very happy to report, but I can report that I had a near-death experience because, yeah,
Really?
bacterial infection in the brain, but actually I had a bacterial infection all over my body because I had sepsis years ago, right? And I was in San Francisco and I was in intensive care for a week. Okay, so what I can tell you is when I was at ER and I had 42 degrees of temperature, they told me. I remember a few things. By the way, I remember that I was trying to speak English, but I would only be able to speak like a few words here and there with an Italian accent, which usually I don't have, like very strong Italian accent. I've never had it. This time it came out, I don't know. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that I remember that I saw my whole life, flow or before my eyes. Yes, until I got to that point and I was like, okay, my God, how did I get here? And then the whole story, so many things that got me, like one after the other, got me to that point of me laying on the table there in ER in San Francisco. So, but I didn't get to the point, thank God, probably I didn't get to the point in which I actually, exited my body, so to say, and I saw my body laying on the table. I didn't see that, but I did see already, my whole life, just so you know.
Yeah, that life review process is a hallmark of, almost everybody reports this complete life review. And when people, there's research into like what happens in between death and birth. There's like different phases that people go through. And there's an extended part of that life review process where you go back through more slowly and you experience all of your life experiences from the other person's perspective. Like in this conversation, I would experience what you felt like in this conversation. So you can understand your impact on other people and the karma, basically the ripple that you created for them. And so it's a good way to learn lessons by experiencing the interaction from all sides, essentially.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so interesting. Wow. We need to go deeper into this rabbit hole, maybe in one of our monthly quantum calls, right? This is so cool. But there's one thing that you mentioned a few minutes ago, which is that before things, like before, entities take a physical form, then they are, so to say, in another dimension. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology. And you also use the term idea. Now, because here on the Personal PR Show, we also talk about the thought leadership, and thought leadership is basically based on an idea. And I like to talk about breakthrough ideas, but yeah, is there any particular I don't know, dimension or a standing or status or whatever the best term would be for ideas. What is the role? What is the kind of entity of ideas when it comes to the physical world, the quantum world?
Well, let's think about this in terms of people that you and I work with, entrepreneurs. You might have an idea, and you might have arrived at that like via rational processes. You might have like gotten a bunch of data together and be like, I think this is our best plan of action. Or you might just have a moment of creative inspiration. You're out for a walk and be like, oh my gosh, the world needs a blank. That's the first kernel of the process for making it real. So then you're like, okay, do I need to flesh out my idea? Like, do I need to dip into creativity and like really do some brainstorming, have a lot of conversations, like really flesh out this idea. And then you decide on what it is you're going to put your energy towards. I'm going to launch a new course. I'm going to put together a group. I'm going to, whatever it is. And then there's the creation phase, which is where it moves from this unphysical form into a physical form. And basically you're providing the vehicle, the pathway for something to exist. Let's say you want to have a party. Well, this is the party planning phase, sending out the invites, getting people on board with what they're going to be bringing, all these different types of things, right? And then there's the actual, like, we have the party, the actual physical event. That's when it's at its most real physical experience, because we all get together, we're touching the glasses when we clink them together, and we're dancing, and so it's like at its most realized physical form. But you've basically created this pathway for something that was only just a whiff of an idea into now something real that people are experiencing with their senses together. And that's when people talk about manifesting, like that's the pathway of manifesting, but it's the same pathway of running a business, really.
That's true. Wow. So I imagine that this is what you this is one of the things that you work on with your clients in your quantum business mastermind. Is it the right name, quantum business mastermind?
It's specifically called the League of Superconductors. And superconductors because I wrote a book called Superconductors, which it was supposed to be called Conductors, because I was like, oh, conducting ideas, conducting energy, conducting people together. Oh, cool. And then my publisher was like, let's make it super. And I was like, okay, whatever, superconductors. So yeah, so the there's one aspect is the doing. Like what do you have to do in order to bring something into the world? And a lot of people focus on the doing. Our Western culture is focused around the doing, but in order to have the right thing come through, or in order for it to be easy, there's an aspect of being. Who do I have to be? Like, what is the match of the right identity and vibrational frequency that I have to show up as in order to be an effective CEO or project manager for this vision?
I see. Wow. Oh my God, we touched also manifesting. And when it comes to manifesting, by the way, and all of these amazing topics, oh my God, I'm not an expert. I just know you and a few of friends of ours. We get together once a month, guys. We get together once a month. And I get to hear these amazing approaches for an hour, for a whole hour. And I'm absorbing like a sponge, because actually I have no clue. But I'm so happy with that we touched on all of these concepts. And if we go back, Derek, for a second to the title of our interview today, we titled it this way: How a World-Class Network Can Unlock Abundance, right? And this, actually, it was supposed to be a little bit longer, the 5 levels of abundance, right? This is something that you talk about. So, and this to me speaks about, like, indirectly speaks about manifesting as well, probably, right? So how can a world-class network help you, I don't know, with manifestation, with unlocking abundance, the 5 level of abundance, and so on?
Yeah, so we just touched on, right, the difference between the doing and the being. And a lot of people focus on the doing, and a lot of people focus on money, when they think about abundance, they're like, they want to get some more money, or if I had money, then I could use it to do the things that I want. And it basically confines your focus to this narrow aspect of abundance, or even your ability to create in the world. And it basically, because it's such a narrow focus, you lose access to all the other types of abundance. And so I thought, when I started thinking about this a few years ago, I realized in my personal life, I haven't used money that much. I haven't just been like, I'm just going to fix this problem with money. Oftentimes it's been a combination of many different things. And so I'll go through the 5 different types of abundance, but the definition, let's start with the definition of abundance, which is being able to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And when you work from that definition, then you can come at it any way you like, right? As long as you can do what you need to do when you need to do it, it doesn't matter how you get there. So one great example is, let's say you want to buy a house, or you want to have a new house. Well, you could buy it, you could get a mortgage, or whatever, or you could somehow win it in a contest. You could just get lucky and win it, or your uncle could give it to you, right? Mm-hmm. Or you could trade something valuable for it. You could, let's say you were a movie producer and you needed some cast members, like extras, and maybe someone's dream was to be in Hollywood, so you could trade them a movie role for a house. There's and let's see, am I missing any gifts, money? Or you could go on YouTube and learn how to build your own house. You could get some good information about how to build your own house. So these are examples of luck, reciprocity, gifting, ideas, and money. There's 5 different ways you could actually get that physical house and get the thing you needed. And most people stop at, I'll just buy it.
Yes, that's true. Exactly. And for example, the networking, the world-class network from our title, can definitely plays a role in, for example, in gifting or exchanging, right?
Yeah. So the meta level of abundance is all of these things are facilitated through people. You need people to give you things. You need people to trade with. You need people, even if you're going to buy something, like you need to buy it from a person. If you want a mentor to give you advice about buying or building a house, that's an actual person. So everything you want is made possible through relationship, except, certain personal skills, right? Like your ability to have creative insight, like you can do that on your own. But any of these levels can be enhanced through relationship. So it's a leverage point that builds on each of these aspects of abundance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. And we saw that in the example that you told us at the beginning of this call with you applying for, actually not even applying, being invited to the university that you were dreaming of studying at. Is there any other example that you would like to share, maybe more recent, or I don't know, maybe one of your clients' example? Because I know that your clients experience pretty cool stuff when they work with you in your mastermind.
What is a good example? Well, I'm thinking the first thing I thought of is a client, and so let's say you just want more business. You want more clients, whatever you do. This particular client, he has a marketing agency for spiritual teachers. So one thing to keep in mind is, okay, where am I going to find spiritual teachers? Where are they hanging out? And I think of this as first, one thing you need to do is you need to go to the right room. So if you're at a hotel and there's like multiple conferences going on and you go to the baking conference, but you're trying to do marketing for spiritual teachers, well, it's not going to help you that much. So first you would just want to find the right room, room 102 or whatever it may be, whether it's the physical room in person or online or community. So you find the right room, and then you are surrounded by the right type of people that can get you what you want. And what he wants is not just paying customers, but he wants people that need his expertise. He wants a way to contribute to the world. He has his marketing expertise. He likes what a lot of healers and spiritual teachers are doing, and he wants to use that in service. So he's looking for opportunities to serve, essentially. And so once he gets in the right room, then those opportunities tend to appear much more easily. So once we realized that most of his business was coming from him just going to fun events, it was like he would just go to these festivals and conferences, and that's where the business came from. Like almost he didn't have to do anything after that. So then you set up a system where you regularly are making sure that you go to these types of events, so you get in the right room, and then maybe you have some sort of process for like letting people know exactly what you do. But that's like one of the biggest steps that seems to enable his success.
Yeah, definitely. And also perceiving himself as somebody with something to give, right? To offer, to contribute, to serve, right? Exactly. No, he was not there just to look for business for potential clients. He was there to serve, basically. I like this, I love this, let's say, way of looking at things as well. Absolutely. Oh my God, this is so cool. And by the way, you dropped the name of our friend. On the internet, there are two harbingers. There's the lawyer, your friend, and then there's another one who also talks about networking. I think he holds The Art of Charm, the podcast, The Art of Charm?
Yeah, well, so Jordan he started The Art of Charm, and then he went out on his own. And now he hosts the Jordan Harbinger show. It's, he talks about, so The Art of Charm is really a lot about charisma and confidence and relationships and, a lot of like the body language and things like that, as far as I understand it. But he basically got kicked out of that business by his business partners after a decade or so, and had to start from scratch. It was a multi-million-dollar business, and he was essentially left with nothing, had to restart from the ground level, but had his relationships in place. And he was able to quickly, so I had him back on my show after he had to do this to help him out. And he had rebuilt his audience to 1 million in less than 3 weeks, I think, because he had people that were willing to say, hey, Jordan has a new thing, check him out. So he went on all these podcasts of these people with a lot of reach and audience, and was able to regather the people that he had lost and more.
Amazing. And this is how you met him?
We met a long time ago through podcasting. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's so cool. By the way, let's talk about your podcast for a second, because actually podcasting is one of the best ways to network, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's when I started, I was so excited to discover that it's really great, because it does a couple things. One, it allows you to give right away. If you're sharing somebody's work with the world, you're getting new eyeballs onto their work, which is wonderful for anybody who wants to do that. But it also puts you in a container of a conversation where you really get to know somebody. So a lot of my podcast guests, through our interviews, I know what they need. I know where their business is going or their research is going. So now I can be on the lookout for introductions, for ideas, for opportunities, whatever may be helpful for them. So yeah, it's a pretty fantastic vehicle for that.
Oh yeah, so much. Wow, so cool. And by the way, I've noticed something as well. If you want to kind of cold call or a cold approach to somebody, if you can't, arrange an introduction to this particular person, then actually just saying that you have a podcast and you would like to interview them and basically offer them space and exposure on your platform already gives you a lot of possibilities more than if you just approach this person without anything to offer, right? So it's easier to actually build relationships this way, not just to nurture them, but actually build them with maybe even high level people in a certain field, right? Yes. Has it happened to you as well that you just reached out to somebody and you said, well, actually, I have this podcast, it has so many followers and it has this reach and so on. And the person was like, yummy.
Yeah. And especially, I started my show by just interviewing my friends, and that gave me the experience. But if I want to interview somebody who's super busy, has lots of requests for, public appearances, running multiple businesses, yada, yada, if they're, a busy and important person, then you have to think like what's going to be valuable enough for them to set aside hours of their time for this endeavor. And especially like when you do your original outreach, you need to be able to communicate to them in a very clear way what's in it for them. People, I have articles about this. I have podcast episodes teaching people how to get busy and important people to respond to you. And I still get emails all the time where people write me like 10 pages of thing and they're asking for like 10 different things from me. And I'm just like, I can't even finish the email, honestly. Which is I would love to be able to, but there's a real skill in being able to just quickly and easily make an invite that people want to respond to.
Oh my God, it's so valuable what you just said, and the expertise that you developed as well in, being able to convey the value, what is in for this person in just a few sentences, and in the prime real estate of the email that you write. Certainly. So actually, I have a mastermind. It's called the Thought Leaders Mastermind, and it's a 5-month program. And in month 4, we talk about how to get featured on third-party channels, and we talk about how to get invited to podcasts as well, and how to get cool people on your podcast. So would you like to come as a guest lecturer?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yes. Perfect. I'll send you an invite. It's going to be in December. That month is going to be so cool. Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? Something that I recommend to people as well, whenever they ask me, how can I get myself featured on a podcast? Do you know what I recommend first? Of course, I have a few recommendations, which includes what you've just said. So of course, the pitch, so to say, or the offering has to be clear, and it has to be at the top of the email, of course, and a few other things. But one of the first thing that I usually recommend is have your own podcast. Right? Because I see so much reciprocity going on. You invite somebody to your podcast, and then a lot of people invite you back to their podcast, right? Because of this reciprocity. Has it happened to you as well? Is it something that you see in your world as well?
Yeah, and I have a little group for metaphysical podcasters, and there's 25 or so of us, and lots of people have gone on other people's shows. So it creates the sort of mutual sharing of our audience, which is, if you're building an audience, you want access to people that are going to like what you've got. So that's sort of the best, or whether you're building a company, right? You want access to people that want what you have. So looking for who already has a group of people listening to them that's going to like what I have. That's probably the best place to start.
Oh, absolutely. This is so true. Yes. Derek, I see that we still have a few minutes, but I'd like to ask you a question that I usually ask at the end of interviews, and I'm going to ask you this question at the very end, but when we still have 12 minutes, because we could go down a rabbit hole. Let's see. So the question I usually ask is, what is something that I haven't asked you yet during this interview, but I should have asked you? So something that we absolutely need to know about you, about one of your topics, and it could be more than one as well. We have time.
That's a Jordan Harbinger question right there, by the way. I don't know if you knew. I think he was the first podcaster to start using that at the end of his shows.
Oh, I didn't know. I heard this in for market research. Like, my market research, I have 20 questions. The last question was, what is something that I haven't asked? And I was like, actually, I can use this question for interviews as well. So cool. Well, thank you, Jordan at Harbinger.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan. Let's see. Let's talk about this concept. Something a really useful takeaway for the audience when we're talking about being a giver, when we're talking about accessing abundance through relationships. One of the very first things you want to think about doing is, how do I build connection and trust in a relationship? And Adam Grant told me that this concept of the 5-minute favor. Are you familiar with this?
No, but can I go back for by 10 seconds? Adam Grant told you, did you interview him?
Yes, and he started our relationship with a 5-minute favor. And so actually it was my father's company, which was Nestle. Adam Grant had spoken there, and then my dad referred me to Adam Grant. And so I sent him an email. I said, I'm just starting a podcast. Do you have any recommendations for who I should have on? It was, at the time, it was really about entrepreneurship and also adventure, but I was interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs. And he said, here's 5 people. Now, these 5 people were really high quality, 3 billionaires, 2 New York Times bestsellers, and just like real geniuses in their fields. And he said, here's 5 people I can think of off the top of my head. Would you like me to introduce them to you? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So I ended up getting all 5 introductions. I interviewed 4 of them. It really kicked my show into being known. And it took him just a moment to think of these people and do the introductions. Okay. And this concept of the 5-minute favor is something you can do in less than 5 minutes that adds value to your relationship. So let's brainstorm for a second. I've already just mentioned introductions is probably one of my favorites, but can you think of a 5-minute favor that you could do for somebody that could benefit them and help the relationship?
Yeah. Okay, me personally, I could give them a media angle because my brain is trained to find media angles, right? For something to make something a story newsworthy. And yes, it's something that I could just give in 5 minutes. It doesn't take me longer to find a media angle, for example, me personally. How about you?
Yeah. So, we already mentioned the giving away ideas. So that's something you can do. You could brainstorm specifically for their business or project and then just give them the ideas. You could give them feedback, right? You could listen to them and then give them feedback about something. At one point I had like 15 examples readily available. I'm having a hard time thinking of them. Oh, another one for podcasters or authors or whatever, like giving them a review on Amazon or in iTunes is very helpful. It does 2 things. It helps boost the show up, but it also gives information to the host. So if you write a review and you can make it as useful for the potential listener and useful for the host, be like, here's the things that I like about the show, particularly these topics, and here's how I use them, then the host can be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I'm going to do some more along those lines. So yeah, just having your sort of go-to favorite, I will always, if anybody is writing a book and they're a friend of mine, I will always buy it and review it because that's just so helpful, right? Also, whenever somebody is launching something, right? Like being that first customer is super helpful. So I'm the first customer for so many of my friends because it gets them into momentum.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and this is something that takes you 5 minutes. Exactly. You just go on the page and then you just hit purchase, button purchase. Wow, so many ideas. Yes. And by the way, because you mentioned your podcast, I am, just so you know, and so everybody knows, I am going to include all of your links in the comment section of this post, of this live, which will become a post, right? So all of your links will be there, including the TikTok link.
Oh, the TikTok link. That's where you'll find more of the metaphysical stuff on there.
Yeah. By the way, how do
people
you
seem to really like it?
Content? Because you're present on many channels. Okay, so we know you talk about metaphysical items on your TikTok, right? So what do you use the other channels for? Do you have a channel strategy?
So YouTube, I do full length video interviews and also clips, shorter clips, like 3 to 10 minutes around, like if there's a specific topic within the conversation. Let's say we're talking about manifesting for 10 minutes. So I'll put that as its own clip. And then I do a lot of these shorter, like a single story about, some scientific research or interesting phenomenon will be a 1 minute video that goes to TikTok Reels, YouTube Shorts, etc.
Yes. Okay, that's great. Yes. I'm sure you have somebody that does the work for you, that repurposes all of this lovely content, right? Because it's a full-time job these days.
Yeah, I mean, the short videos are really easy because you just takes 1 minute to record it and then 1 minute to post it on all the platforms. For the longer form stuff, yeah, we do have someone that manages that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. How long has your podcast been going on, by the way?
I think this is 9 years now, almost 400 episodes. 400 episodes. Yeah.
What are you going to do for your 500 episode? Do you have anything reaching next year?
My goal was to make it to 300, so I'm in bonus time. This is basically at 300 we rebranded the show. It used to be called The Art of Adventure. It was a lot about being a digital nomad, professional adventurers, like the sports side of things, like the first woman to run the Amazon or the first person to climb, all 14 of the 8,000 meter, whatever, these adventurers. But in the last 3 years, it's really morphed into including more science and spirituality, metaphysics, because I'm super interested in that stuff. So, but you can get the best is somebody who's an adventurer and a metaphysical explorer and an entrepreneur all into one.
Yeah, which is you. And have you met anybody else in your huge global network? Have you met anybody else who has all of these three interests? And,
there's amazing people out there for sure.
Wow. Yeah. And the entrepreneurs as well. So metaphysics, entrepreneurship, and also digital nomads. Yes, and you've lived in so many countries already in your bio.
Yeah, when I say lived, I mean at least 3 months. So you get to know a neighborhood, you get to, you go to the cafe and you say, I'll have the usual, please. And they give you the, your iced mocha, that's my usual. So I visited a lot of places. I think I've lived in 15 countries and visited maybe 40 or 50 or so.
My God, yes. And I read as well that you have been to every single one of the 50 US states.
Yeah, that was a quest that I took on. And you've heard me mention quests a couple of times, like my quest to experience 100 different metaphysical techniques. Questing is a really fun framework for exploring, and it provides this container. It's, like the hero's journey, right? That's the storified version of our life. Operating in quests is a really fun way to do that. So my first quest was to go to every state, all 50 states. When I was a kid, we would take little road trips around, our part of the country, but it's a big country. And some of these states are just, you would never go there unless you made it a purpose to go there. So it gets harder and harder to get the last few, but I did it right before my 30th birthday. I went to Alaska.
I went to Alaska. That was the last one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Derek, we have to have you again on the show. There are so many topics that we have to explore together. I am so lucky that I see you twice a month, once a month for the Global Super Connector meeting and once a month for the Quantum Business meeting. And but still, it's not enough because we can all learn so much from you. So could you please promise to us officially now in front of everybody that you will come back.
Be my pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Derek. It has been so much fun. We've learned so much. And yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. Always good to see you.
Yeah, you too. All right, Derek. See you soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching us. You learned so much from Derek. And Derek, may they reach out to you? I don't know what you prefer. Make it be a comment here under our post, or shall they DM you? What is your preference?
Yeah, I often check Instagram, or you can email me, derek@derekloudermilk.com. And I'm at Derek Loudermilk on all the socials. So easy to get hold of.
I'll be sure to include your email address and all of your links here down.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye, guys. Bye. Ta-ta.